Welcome to the Utah Assistive Technology Conference for 2021. Today we're going to go over speech-to-text as a writing tool. My name is Eric Gengar, and I work in the Davis School District as one of the assistive technology specialists and on the school and student support team. I think it's important that we start talking about what writing is and how that intersects with assistive technology. Writing is simply the process or the act of forming visible letters and characters, or the act of practicing literary composition, as defined by Merriam-Webster. The writing process isn't what changes here. How we teach the writing process stays the same. However, what we're doing right now is introducing a new tool for writing, and that is speech-to-text. So let's talk about writing tools that we use and sort of a brief history of how they were introduced and how they were received as they were introduced. Now, writing goes back to clay tablets and other forms, but the most common form that we're familiar with is ink pens. Now, these were quill pens or pens that had to be dipped in homemade inks in order to write, and they were very precise, and you had to be very good because there was no error correction on these. When the ballpoint pen came around and was introduced, many people pushed back a little bit because it was too easy to write, and you didn't have to have the same skills for calligraphy and other types of things, and you didn't have to know how to make your own ink. The next leaps we saw in writing technology were things like slates, and slates were used in schools. And again, there was pushback because if students could constantly erase their mistakes, how would they learn to do it correctly? The same thing happened as we introduced pencils with erasers. Again, a very efficient and great form of writing, but there was pushback because it was too easy to correct your mistakes and change things. And that took the emphasis away on the preciseness of writing. Now, if you're of a certain age, you may have, like me, learned to write on a typewriter. The typewriter we had at my house was an old mechanical typewriter. It was a lot of fun to bang on until the keys jammed. And then even in school, the tools that I learned to write on were an electric typewriter. It wasn't until I got to college that keyboards were introduced. And this was also a big change, and people pushed back because the tools that were built in to the computer, such as word processing, spell check, and those kinds of things, took away from that preciseness of writing, and people didn't think that it was fair. Now we're at the next big piece of writing tools, and that is speech-to-text. Now, speech-to-text has come a huge, long way in the last few years. A few years ago, speech-to-text was hard to use. It was hard to find. We had to install it on computers, and it wasn't very accurate, especially for younger students. In recent years, speech-to-text has been built into every tool that we have, whether you're using Microsoft Office, whether you're using the iPad, whether you're using a Chromebook. Speech-to-text is just built in. It's just part of the operating system now. And again, we're seeing pushback on it's not fair or it's cheating, but really what it is it's just a different writing tool. And I would argue that the writing tool, they're all created equal. Whatever works best for you in your certain application is what you should be using. The one big difference in writing tools is that we actively teach some writing tools. Pencils and pens, we can't spend a lot of time teaching students how to hold the pen, how to make correct strokes, to write letters, and then form those letters into words and sentences and add punctuation and go back and edit. Same thing with the keyboard. We spend a lot of time teaching students how to place their fingers on the keyboard, and then how to use that to write efficiently and effectively. Speech-to-text is sort of the lone holdout on this one. It's not something that we actively teach to students because we assume that because they have the mechanics of speaking, that they can take that and transform that speaking into writing. One of the things I relied on with the other writing tools like pen and paper and a keyboard is that I could stop mid-sentence, think, and compose, and then continue the writing process. But with speech-to-text, the written product needed to be a lot more fluent, meaning I needed to have whole phrases and sentences ready before I started the active process of writing them down with my voice. My favorite resource for teaching speech-to-text is this one by Daniel Cochrane and Kelly Key called Speech Recognition as AT for Writing, a Guide for K-12 Education, copyright 2016. the copyright does allow for non-commercial use such as this, and the next slides are adapted from their work. One of my favorite pieces of this is that they do use the explicit instruction model. The I do, we do, and you do. And they do it appropriately. The I do is quick, so modeling and showing speech to text is not a long process, but a lot of the emphasis is placed on the we do part of it, where you help students learn how to use speech to text efficiently and actively. And then finally, we turn it over to the you do piece where students are completing work on their own. Now, this graphic is adapted from, again, Cochrane and Key, and the process that they recommend, and this goes across their 8-step model, is think it, say it, check it, and then fix it. I know you've probably had students like me who thought that they could think it, say it at the same time, and read it at the same time. So they're doing 3 cognitive tasks. They're composing a sentence, they're saying it out loud, and they're trying to read it and check it for accuracy all at the same time. It's really nice to break these into separate steps. So first I think it, compose the sentence in my mind, maybe even practice it. Then I say it into the computer with speech to text turned on. Then I stop that, I go and I check it, and I fix it. So I break all of these tasks into separate pieces. This reduces not only the cognitive load, but again mirrors what I'm used to in the past with my writing process with a pencil or with a keyboard. I can think it, then I can start to type it, then I go back and check it, and then I fix it. So let's jump into the 8-step process. Now again, this process can be changed depending on the student that you're working with and the needs of you and your student. The first one though is the I do. I model the writing process. So I model think it, say it, check it, fix it. So I show them, I think out loud and I say, this is what I want to talk about or write about. So I think it, then I say it, and then I check it and fix it. And this is where I also go through and I model the operational pieces of this, turning on the microphone, positioning the microphone, speaking into the microphone, working on my enunciation and my rate of speech, as well as adding in things like punctuation. Again, showing students how the process works and all of the things that can be done. One of the best parts about actually modeling this process is that students will quickly see that the computer makes mistakes. And it doesn't make spelling mistakes, it makes word mistakes. It adds in a different word than you had said because it misunderstands you. And it's nice for students to know that it's not them. It's part of what the tool does. When the tool doesn't understand what you say, it takes its best guess, but that isn't always the right word. So they need to go back and learn how to edit for wrong words instead of misspelled words. Modeling, of course, can be done in a small group or in one-on-one. But again, it's important that students see how the tools work and learn and watch somebody else using those tools. And then we're going to move on to step 2. In step 2, the student writes a personalized sentence. Now, this isn't a sentence that they compose themselves. What we're going to do is use a fill-in-the-blank sentence or sentences. So I might have sentences where I say, I live on a leave-in-the-blank house on a fill-in-the-blank street. And then the student can fill in those blanks so that they're actively composing what they want to say and they're practicing it, right? We're going to coach that piece until the enunciation is correct, and we're not going to turn on the microphone yet. After they've done it a few times correctly, then we're going to have them turn on the microphone and have them dictate the sentence a few times. This is so that we can compare those, right? We're not going to correct our errors yet, but we're going to compare those results. So if they've said the sentence 3, 4, 5 times, let's go back and look through and see what it did. And oftentimes what you'll find is you catch things that they're errors that they're making and that you can help them adjust those. And you're going to make adjustments to your microphone, positioning, all of those things as needed. Now this could be something that takes place over a few days where they come in and each day they practice doing fill-in-the-blank sentences. Again, becoming familiar with the tools in a way that's much easier for them. They don't have the cognitive load of thinking of a complete sentence, But again, it's still their work because they're filling in the blanks and they're actively starting to use their brain to think it, then say it, check it, and fix it. After students are able to do fill in the blank sentences accurately and correctly, we're going to move to step 3, which is write 3 to 4 sentences on a topic. We're going to teach the editing process after each sentence this time. We're going to again continue to teach pronunciation and teaching some simple voice commands such as period, new paragraph, those kinds of things. And these are going to be sentences that are on a personal topic for them. So again, it's not an academic topic yet. It's something about family pets, things that they did on vacation, things that they like to do at school, favorite classes, and why those are their favorite classes. Again, working on a sentence at a time. So they're going to think of the sentence, say the sentence, turn off the microphone, check the sentence, and then fix the sentence. Now, for students in younger grades, this might be the end goal, is that they're writing 3 to 4 sentences on a topic. We're not worried about putting things into paragraphs and other things yet. So this may be where we stop working directly with them on the speech to text, and we move to having them use this on assignments. But for our students who are doing more advanced writing skills and need more advanced writing skills, we're going to keep moving. On step 4, we're going to have the students write and edit 1 to 2 paragraphs from pictures or personal topics. Again, we're not introducing academic topics yet, but we are going to start to use the same tools that we teach in the writing process. So how do we fill in a graphic organizer? And we can use speech to text to do that. We can put in words, phrases, ideas, and then take that graphic organizer and move it over to our rough draft that we then edit and fix. And it's really important that we continue to coach the think it, say it, check it, fix it process so that students become really proficient with this. After step 4, we move to step 5, which is write and edit 5 to 10 single sentences on an academic topic. So now we're going to increase the cognitive load on students and the demand and add in a grade level vocabulary list. Now these should be vocabulary words that have been taught, and we're going to have them create a sentence with each word. This could be a word list that we get from science or one of their other general education classrooms. And we're going to, again, teach them how to create sentences with that word. So let's say we grabbed a science assignment and we had words about volcanoes like magma. The student would then dictate a sentence, and we're going to encourage them to expand their sentences as needed. So that if they just said magma is in volcanoes, we might say magma is formed deep in the Earth's crust and comes to the surface through volcanoes and then is formed into metamorphic rocks, something along those lines, right? Have them expand upon the sentences so that they're more complex and in-depth. Once students are able to write sentences on academic topics, now we're going to introduce writing multiple paragraphs on academic topics. And again, we're still in the we do part of this. So you are still providing support and guidance through this, helping correct errors, helping fix things with speech to text as a tool, such as correct microphone positioning and other things like making sure they know how to use voice commands, all of those kinds of things. And we are going to have the student write about a topic of interest or an academic topic. It could be either one, depending again on the skill and comfort level of the student. If the student's still struggling a little bit, a topic of interest is going to be a lot easier for them to use than an academic topic where that cognitive demand is a lot higher on them. Now we have students writing multiple paragraphs, which is really good progress for students. And step 7 is they are going to complete a semi-independent assignment. So we're going to move from that we do portion of the explicit instruction model a little bit more towards the you do. So having them do it independently, but make sure to provide sufficient support for this. And part of this support is going to be encouragement and motivation, which we'll talk about at the end. It could be an academic assignment that's used for this, but it doesn't necessarily need to be one. Again, we're going to work on those graphic organizers. We're going to work on rough drafts. We're going to go back on editing those rough drafts into a final product. That whole writing process stays the same. We're just using the tool of speech to text. The last step for students, and this may be your older students, is completing an academic writing assignment. they've already learned all the steps. We've done a lot of the we do part of it. They know all the operational pieces of it. They've had practice with it. Now we're going to introduce this as an academic writing assignment. I have had teachers who have used motivational tools. Again, we're going to talk about some of those, like giving them credit for using speech to text or a certain amount of credit on the assignment, and then the rest of the credit for the written product. But this is going to be our baseline for how the student does. It's going to be our benchmark from where they were at the beginning to now they've been taught the writing process. What's the difference between those, as well as the new benchmark for how do they do on independent writing assignments going forward in the future. Now, and again, you may not go through all 8 steps of these with your students. Younger grade students may not be completing paragraphs and essays. They may be working on sentences and phrases. But again, our high school students, our junior high students are going to be at the level where they're expected to complete academic writing assignments. And speech to text is an excellent tool for them. Now, we've addressed one big piece of why speech to text is abandoned by students, even though it is a more effective tool for many of them. That's because they hadn't been taught how to use it. As we're teaching them how to use it, and even after we've taught them how to use it, we need to still provide motivation. Psychology is the same for all of us, right? I just got a new Apple Watch. I'm going to tell you I understand the psychology behind the thing, but it works. It motivates me to stand up. It motivates me to get more exercise. It motivates me to do all of those things. Simple reinforcements. Some of the best reinforcement I've seen teachers use and provide for students is giving them credit for using speech recognition. So initially, when they're first getting started on those academic tasks, maybe the teacher gives them 20, 30, 40% credit for using speech to text, and the remainder of the credit is based on the content of what they turn in. But again, the student has a big incentive to use speech to text as their writing tool. Also, having them work with peers has been really valuable. Nobody wants to be the only student doing something in the room that's different than what everybody else is doing. And oftentimes we find that other students are really excited to use speech to text as a writing tool as well. It just helps to do it with a buddy. I've seen teachers make it a reward. If you complete this, this, and this, then I'll let you use speech to text on your next few assignments so that you can get them done more quickly, more efficiently, and have more free time. And make sure that you're identifying difficulties quickly. We have all abandoned things that we really enjoy and that we like doing and that we know are good for us because we run into roadblocks. If somebody helps us identify those difficulties and repair those things as quickly as possible, we avoid frustration and we're much more likely to keep using them. And again, for a lot of our students, they've struggled with all of these writing tools because the writing process is really what they're struggling with. So remember that we're still teaching that writing process, but we're also balancing it with learning something new. And so that reinforcement really is super important for students. Thank you for your time. Again, we will include links for the resources that we've mentioned and used in the description for the video, as well as I wanted to point out a couple other things. These are assistive technology pieces that were embedded into it. One of those is Fluent Fonts, such as Fluent Calibri from Microsoft, which make things easier for students to read. Design ideas from Microsoft again, that allows me to create slides that are a little bit more engaging than what I would do on my own, all with the click of a button, as well as some other fun things in Microsoft that when I had to remember how to do, such as record this video in Microsoft PowerPoint, I use the Tell Me feature and I type in record and it pulls up all of those great features that I can use. Thank you for your time. This has been Eric Engar from Davis School District.